Welcome to On Air with LG, brought to you by LG Electronics European Air Solution Team. We know that in today's digital world, time is limited, attention is short, and everyone is busier than ever. That's why we're bringing the HVAC industry's hottest topics on air, where you can both learn and be inspired on the go. Join us for a new episode every 2 weeks, where we answer your most pressing questions and explore the constantly shifting world of HVAC topics like the energy transition, renewable innovation, and the past, present, and incredibly bright future that our industry has to offer to both our lifetime achievers as well as the next generation of professionals. I'm Melissa Moeller, your host throughout this series, and I hope you enjoy. The renovation wave has been driving change across Europe's building industry for a while now, and with it comes various opportunities for the HVAC community. On this episode, we're joined by Anita Derjanecz, the Managing Director of REVA. REVA is the Federation of European Heating, Ventilation, and Air Conditioning Associations. She has been part of the REVA team for the past 9 years and has been a key player in the research, technical guidance, and advocacy on indoor air quality, better health, and energy performance of buildings for almost 60 years. Hi, Anita. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Hello, Melissa. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very good. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's just jump right into the conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about the renovation wave, which is obviously a very hot topic across Europe and probably the world. But in the European perspective, if you could just first give me a brief introduction to what the renovation wave is, what it's referring to, why is it a hot topic right now?
Thank you. Exactly. That's the hottest topic possible in Europe nowadays. Because as we all should know by now, I'm working in this profession. The European Commission and the European Union committed to some global and European climate goals, and to reach these, we have to tackle the problem of our building stock, all the buildings in Europe. Making them sustainable, making them high performant in terms of energy use. And that means that they launched the European Green Deal, for sure is a term for many listeners that they heard of. And as part of the European Green Deal, they launched this initiative of the renovation wave, which should be a huge wave, a tsunami actually of renovating buildings, because 75% of our buildings in Europe is inefficient, have a poor energy performance. And that would mean that we have to, in the coming 10 years, let's say, we have to renovate almost 150 million buildings across Europe within actually the few next decades in order to reach our climate goals.
So no pressure. Easy.
Exactly.
So in general, what is the HVAC industry need to understand about this trend, specifically regarding obviously energy and the renovation of the HVAC systems in the buildings?
So this is a huge challenge and opportunity for the HVAC sector. Of course, you have to. We know all that there is these energy performance certificates for buildings. So now, when you want to sell or buy a building, then you can get these color coded rate of a building, how well it's doing. Now our buildings usually do very bad on this scale. And renovating the building in terms of energy, so they call it deep energy renovation. Now, what does it mean? That you comprehensively renovate a building to make it use less energy. It started with renovating mostly the envelope, which means that you replace the windows, as you might know, you add additional insulation to the walls or on the roof, where you lose a lot of heat, especially heat energy, and also gain heat, of course, if it's not insulated. However, that's not all what we have to do. So by insulating our buildings, we actually generated a problem, because these energy renovation and insulation of the building started back then in the 1980s. After the oil crisis, of course, they started to talk about building codes and building performance already. However, if you insulate such your buildings and you replace the windows, there is zero fresh air or air moving anymore. So you end up to have maybe overheating because you have the same sun coming in, but but there is no ventilation, natural ventilation anymore. Or you don't need such a huge system for heating and we have climate change, of course, happening. So unfortunately, in many parts of Europe, the cooling need will also increase, also in regions where it was not an issue before. So it's not only about renovating the envelope, the roof, the windows, the walls, but it's about replacing the heating, cooling, and ventilation systems in buildings systematically. And of course, the big challenge is also that we want to decarbonize our buildings. So that's an important aspect of the renovation wave and the European Green Deal. So it's not enough to be energy efficient, meaning that to use as less energy as possible for our living, but also this should be clean energy as much as possible. So we have to use we have to shift from fossil fuels, from gas and other fossil fuels, to a more sustainable and green energy source, which is hopefully which is a green electricity or other renewables based system. Now, in the terms of heating and cooling, it will be mostly actually electricity based. So the installations has to be replaced, and that's a huge challenge for everyone, for building owners including, because there will be a ban soon. Some countries are already starting with that gas boilers will be banned in the next years. I'm quite confident, at least in countries that are progressive. So we have to shift from the traditional fossil fuel-based heating and cooling installations into more sustainable ones. If we shift technology, so one already existing technology for the future that is actually low carbon, can be decarbonized, is heat pumps. So there are slightly new technologies. So instead of a condensing boiler, we should now install heat pumps or maybe other technologies, but that's the most common and easiest to get. However, that needs new skills. So installers have to acquire new skills, and that's also something that the European Union knows. There are national programs supporting somehow the upskilling of professionals, including installers. And let me share with you an experience from Belgium or Brussels, where I'm based. I talked to colleagues that went through renovation of their homes, and it was a huge struggle to find an installer that could install a heat pump. And wherever they contacted the company, actually they wanted to discourage them about the technology, about the fact that not that we don't know how to install. They just said no, it's not a good technology, it won't work, it's not efficient, etc. It's not yet proven, it's very expensive. So you have to struggle now to be able to have a sustainable system installed in your home, and that has to change.
I know that in the past, the heat pumps had a bad reputation, and I guess the industry is still working to combat that. Do you think that has to do with some of the resistance to heat pump technology from the installer's perspective has to do with the original reputation of the heat pump, which, as an industry, obviously we need to combat and move past?
Yes, I mean that it was a new technology, but decades ago, right? So the technology is evolving. They developed it. They developed residential applications already, so not only for bigger buildings, but still this bad reputation remained, and it's a proven technology. So it's not true that it's not working and it's not efficient. And you have these myths, and I'm not sure if it's because of the conservative way how the installer or the industry works that should use the technology, or any other reason that these misconceptions or prejudice still stays. Of course, you need to have skills, so it has to be designed and installed properly, because if you don't install it properly, but that's valid for anything, then it might not work properly. It's education, awareness raising, certainly. education of professionals, education of homeowners, right? So and awareness raising, and then at the end of the day, we need also regulation. So the building codes have to change, and that's also something that governments should and not only the building codes, but the political commitment about greening our electricity and HVAC installations has to come from policymakers. It's my private opinion, not necessarily shared by Reva, but we all know how strong the fossil fuel industry is, and how strong their lobby power is, and how much they are subsidized. Yeah. So overcome this, we need the strong political commitment at national level as well. European Union per se cannot do this because the laws are done at national level. But from our side, the sector of professionals, we need to learn.
Completely agree with you. So before, obviously now we're coming off of COVID-19, and a global pandemic was something that we weren't prepared for, in the way of dealing with it in terms of the challenges and, let's say, some of the opportunities that it proposed for us. But I think regardless of this, Europe was already riding, let's say, the renovation wave. However, this has the situation we've gone through in the past year shifted the topic, or are we still kind of on track to meet the demands of the renovation wave? And sort of what are the implications of the pandemic on the HVAC industry in general?
Yes, thank you very much. That's an excellent question, and points out two things. It did not change the objectives, right? And yes, of course, we have another crisis on the top of climate crisis. That was the pandemic. It also opened, I think, new opportunities in terms of financing and political commitment. So we need a very robust reconstruction plan across Europe because we will feel the impact, the macroeconomic impact of such a pandemic for years now. But this commitment was coupled at European level. So now the recovery, European Recovery Fund and European recovery programs should be even more connected to this energy transition, because renovating the building stock as they want in the coming decades, it means a huge amount of work. So it creates employment, it creates construction sector is considered by the Commission as a means of being the engine of recovery to some extent by creating jobs. So that could be in theory a win-win, because what is changing is but that's not our topic today, but the macroeconomic concept of debt, right? Yeah. So we will have more money, and the governments dare to invest, and the European Union changed its approach against debt. And generated new income, right? So now European Union can give more money and take as European Union loan. The other, and for us even more important point is what the COVID crisis changed is indeed something very much linked to HVAC technologies. It's indoor environmental quality and the question of healthy buildings. So Reva has been advocating since decades, and actually the business industry is also taking this trend over by now. So it became kind of a common sense term now. We need a good indoor air quality, because unfortunately COVID-19 is an airborne pathogen. Yeah. And we caused a lot of problem. Not we, but even WHO or the governments took a bit too long for us, for our opinion, to recognize it.
Yeah,
and we have to mitigate the risk of homes and buildings, also against pathogens. So it's not only about COVID. Anything that you breathe in can harm you inside. And now the other trend is, of course, that we had to work from home. So we are working from home since now almost 2 years or 1 year and a half. And that points out also that homes have to take care, homeowners have to take care about indoor environmental and indoor air quality. And that you can only do nowadays best with proper HVAC design and installation of your buildings. So that is also a huge opportunity of our industry.
Yeah. When you talked about healthy buildings, what exactly is a healthy building? What do we need to understand about what the trend will require for HVAC? And also, is the end user aware of it? And do they, is it something they will request in the future? Is it something that will require? Is it something that regulation will require? So will we be driven to this healthy building standards in a new way?
I really hope so. I really hope that there will be a, if not concerted, but at least bottom up and top down changes at the same time. So a healthy home or a healthy building means that. Of course, we spend our life indoors almost more than 90% we can spend indoors, even without COVID. Now, if we are confined and no bars open, the situation is even worse, of course. And we were obliged now for years. So I think that raised a huge awareness about the quality of our life and well-being indoors. And there are European standards. And there is a science behind this also since decades by now. What are the key aspects of a healthy indoor environment? One of them is the clean air. That's and that is what COVID actually pointed out very much, that how much it can harm you if your air ventilation actually is not properly working or designed for. But there are other aspects like your thermal comfort. Are you cold? Are you warm? And that's what I just want to point out what I mentioned at the beginning. If we over insulate buildings, that we spend less on heating, but we might have overheating during the summer or whenever you have sun intake, not necessarily only in the summer. So there is an aspect of thermal comfort. There is an aspect of light. So daylight also, it's something that is coming. You need a proper amount of daylight in your life in order to be happy and not sick. So these are all aspects of indoor environmental quality, and then acoustics is the fourth big aspect. So the noise, and I think that that is also something that people now faced. Depending where you live, if you had to work for 2 years at home, opening windows in high traffic areas, you get everything. You got polluted air that poisons you. You got noise and no concentration, etc. So these are the four main aspects. There are some others as well, and there is a business case already behind it, coming also from the US. So I think the industry is changing, and I really hope that the demand of users, the customers or consumers or people, let's say us, will also change, and people will demand it for both for their workplaces, but also at home.
Yeah.
To make your home more healthy.
Yeah, I can definitely say it's something that's on my mind, even being in the industry for before COVID. It's something I'm even more aware of nowadays for myself and my own life, and obviously working from home is becoming quite regular. So I think everybody needs to consider more about indoor air quality, because obviously it's let's say a hidden thing that we might not think about on a daily basis, but we should get it into the minds of the end customer as well, because it's already in the minds of the industry itself. So it's our job to kind of push that and try to educate everybody so that we're all really on the same page. Thank you for sharing with us about healthy buildings.
Exactly.
I think it's certainly something we need to think about and consider going forward. And again, the industry is responsible for educating everybody on that topic. Now, one question we ask all of our guests at the end of our podcast session is, what advice would you give yourself at 20 years old? So having a bit of a look back, what would you tell 20-year-old Anita?
Wow, that's a tough question. 20-year-old me. Well, I still would give myself an advice to do even more and against climate change, so that the climate, so that I was aware back then. already, so I started whenever it was possible to do stuff. But I would wish to give myself an advice to care more about this and educate myself better, or learn and change, let's say, my life and try to change others' life, and thinking about this.
Yeah.
Because I independently from COVID, and also COVID is, I think, linked to some extent to our way of living and climate change, or not climate change, but how we treat our natural environment. I think that should be the biggest challenge we focus on now, immediately, not COVID.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think we would all do well to give ourselves the same advice back then, and maybe even before. Implement that into every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, and thank you very much for such a podcast, for example.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anita. It was really great talking to you today. We look forward to having you on again.
It will be a pleasure to come.
Great. Thank you.